What is going on, y'all? What is going on, y'all? What is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman back at it again with the Cave. Do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard?
I told myself coming on, I'm taking all the hards.
You what?
Just give me the hard part.
30.
God, I forgot about the wager. I would have played this game completely different.
It's not the Ravens.
Who is it? Who is it?
It is actually the Eagles.
Oh, Jalen Hurts!
Yeah, Shirley had 105. Yep.
I'll wager 30 points.
It's going to be hard for you to blow this. Respective draft classes, who was selected higher, Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre?
Rodgers.
What is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman back at it again with the Cave every Tuesday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I take to the airwaves, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, to talk about the NFL. We got football underway. We've finally been able to actually get some new content as the season has progressed. And week 3 is on the horizon. Week 2 just completed. And there's so much to talk about. And I'm excited to bring on my guest this week that's going to break it all down with me. He's going to be a fantastic guest tonight. And he's already a busy man. Judge, thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Pokemon, thank you for the
that was
on the intro.
That was great.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's made by all the people that come on, man. It really is a good time to have them do the quiz game and everything. That's what makes the entire intro. But nevertheless, if you guys are watching this channel, if you're watching this live stream, you probably know who Judge is. He's a part of Cover1. He does the air raid hour. He does the air raid hour with Cover1 all the time. He's the one half of it. I had Dave on the show not too long ago, I think a few weeks ago, and he was fantastic. He crushed the quiz game and took the #1 spot at that time. We'll see if he'll be able to overtake what at least he got, because there is a new leader now, by the way.
Yeah, he had some words for me when we wrapped up our show tonight at about 9 o'clock, and he was like, "You better not beat my score." And I told him, I was like, the quiz things, I always find a way to embarrass myself when publicly being asked to answer quiz questions. So hopefully tonight I can be like Will Ferrell in Old School and just black out, beat James going to debate.
Hey, I got faith in you. It's sometimes I don't know how to take the quiz game. Some people, they struggle through it. They get to the end of it, wager all their points just because they got nothing left to lose. But anyway, I think you'll do a pretty good job. But other than that, there's still lots of football to be talked about, and I'm excited to break it all down. So we'll get right into that. And we're going to get into some recent news to start off the show. And there's a couple pieces of news that I wanted to cover, just some big headlines from the weekend. The first one being the 49ers in the situation that they have going down over there. Jimmy G was forced in due to the Trey Lance ankle injury. And in my opinion, the way things went down, it was kind of like they were not like happy relieved, but it was just a weird vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was definitely a weird vibe going on in San Francisco. I almost feel like, and I don't want to sit here and judge Trey Lance or call Trey Lance a bust or any of those kind of things, because just like Josh Allen, he was a very raw quarterback. He was brought in his first game being tasked with sort of taking the reins of the franchise was in that monsoon, and then like a drive into the next game he gets hurt. So I'm sure he would have found himself and all those different things, but I almost feel like maybe the 49ers had some buyer's remorse trading up in the draft for him with what Jimmy G was able to accomplish last year, just seeing how his teammates responded to him when he came into the game this week and the way he led them down the field. He's got an obvious ceiling, Jimmy Garoppolo does, but that 49ers team is built in a way in which if there is a team that could overcome that ceiling, that's probably one of the teams that could do it. So Jimmy G finds himself in a perfect spot. And, if he does about what he did last year, 49ers are going to have some decisions to make this offseason. It's going to be super, super weird.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be extremely weird. And it's so ironic that somehow this all paid off in a very sick way for them, kind of reconstructing Jimmy Garoppolo's contract. And like I said, it ended up paying off. He's going to step in, and there are people that do believe they are a better franchise with him under center. Whether or not that will come to be true, I guess we'll never know, because Trey Lance never got to really express very much, playing quarterback for them. But I do hope that Trey Lance is able to come back. I think he actually would have been a good quarterback this season. He would have found a rhythm. I don't think Kyle Shanahan was going to expect very much from him. I mean, they got a very good skill position group. Their offensive line is going to plow the way. I think the run game would have carried them the majority of the time. So I just think it only could have been going up for the 49ers. And unfortunately, that is what ended up going down. But nevertheless, like I said, it's a very odd vibe that came from that franchise. And you said buyer's remorse. It's a very good way to put it. I think that could be something they're experiencing, even though he hasn't even gotten really an opportunity.
A lot of people thought they were going to take Mac Jones with the 3rd overall pick, and they didn't. They went with the upside. They went with the potential of Trey Lance. I give Mac Jones a hard time, but to me, I think Mac Jones and Jimmy Garoppolo are very similar. Mac Jones maybe being a younger version with maybe more upside than Jimmy Garoppolo. It would have been interesting if they had pulled the trigger on Mac Jones, but now they got Jimmy G, and Jimmy G is actually incentivized to win because the way his contract was restructured. Now he gets like a couple $100K for every win that he racks up. So not only do you have Jimmy G, but you have an incentivized Jimmy G who, picks up a huge paycheck for every dub he picks up as the quarterback now.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you make there. I didn't know exactly. I knew there were incentives built in, but I wasn't sure exactly what they were. And you would think that not only with the incentives, but he's given an opportunity to show that after this season, the 49ers, you're going to have to either make a decision. You're going to keep me or I'm going to go somewhere else and I'm going to be the franchise quarterback for them. So this really does spice up that situation going into the offseason for 2023. And I think the 49ers may be somewhat happy about it now, but when that time comes, the decision is still going to be there to be made. So it's a temporary solution to what seems like a long-term problem at the moment for them. So the second piece of recent news that I wanted to cover, which I'm sure you've talked about enough tonight, but we had to talk about it. The Buffalo Bills last night on Monday Night Football blow out the Tennessee Titans 41-7. What were your initial takeaways? How did you feel about this game?
I said the same. I said this on our show just a couple hours ago. I mean, you got to look at, I think, what the Bills have done this season. You got to sort of look at it and blend the two games together. I mean, they have faced the defending Super Bowl champs and the defending number 1 seed in the AFC, and they've beaten them by a combined score of 72-17. The Bills took what was an historic offensive run in the playoffs and are carrying that over and looking just as good, if not better, in the regular season of year 2. You don't see football teams look as good as the Buffalo Bills do early on in the season. At least like they look like they're picking up right where they left off. There really isn't a lot of rust. So it's almost like we're living in a simulation. Like it doesn't seem real. Like their last 17 wins have been by 20 points or more. As a content creator, it's my job to sort of temper expectations a little bit. Like it's not a video game, guys. It's not Madden. Like we can't expect this, and this every week. But then the Bills go out there and they do this, and that, and sort of just adds fuel to the fire. So there was a point last night at the beginning of the third quarter after the Bills got their stop and then came down and scored the touchdown. And I usually live tweet during the game, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm taking the phone, I'm putting it upstairs on the charger. I'm watching the rest of the game without my phone. Like I just want to soak it in and I just want to enjoy it. So like in this day and age where we can't keep our eyes off our phones, like Josh Allen completely had me mesmerized. That defense completely had me mesmerized last night. I put my phone down, stopped live tweeting, and just enjoyed it for what it was. I mean, just fun to watch, literally a highlight reel from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no other way to put it. There was little negative from a football perspective to take from this game. Of course, there were some kinks along the way, but the crazy part is we are winning games the way we are, even with said kinks. We're coming out, we're having a couple drives where we may stall, but the defense is able to uplift the offense and make sure that the Tennessee Titans don't come out and they take control of the game. I think if this was taking place last season, hypothetically, we stall out, we take that false start, have to settle for 3. We don't get that 4th and 1. That's when Derrick Henry comes out on the field and all of a sudden the pace of the game has changed. They take a long drive. Maybe they put up 7, maybe they put up 3, but that's when you can feel a momentum shift. But thanks to Von Miller, that revamped defensive front, we were able to keep the game in our control. And I feel like that's the biggest difference between the team we're seeing this year and the team we've seen in years past, is the defense is able to harness the control of the game, whereas in past games, like against the Titans, that might not have been the case. The other thing I wanted to also ask you about was how did you think Ken Dorsey managed? I thought Ken Dorsey in this game, although in the first game, we saw a couple play calls that really jumped off the play sheet that we were very happy, pleased to see. It wasn't predictable, but I thought this game specifically, Ken Dorsey, he did something that I thought Brian Dable had a very hard time doing when he was our offensive coordinator, and that was getting away from the run game early when he realized it wasn't working, right? I mean, I think we had 6 handoffs on our first 2 drives. I think we racked up about 18 yards. And then after that, it was the short game that just was serving as that run game. And I thought Brian Dable, that was something he really struggled to be able to do throughout his tenure with the Buffalo Bills. But Ken Dorsey being able to do it in his second game as an offensive coordinator, I thought that was impressive.
Yeah. And, part of it is, on Brian Dable because I think Aaron Kromer has a lot to do with Ken Dorsey's success early on.
Yeah.
And, so you could say, well, it's not Brian Dable's fault, but then Brian Dable also took the offensive coordinator, Bobby Johnson, with him to New York. So maybe it seems like Bobby Johnson was sort of like a Brian Dable guy. But I mean, just watching what Ken Dorsey has done, you mentioned going away from the run, using the passing game as the running game and supplementing, just peppering Stephon Diggs on those little dump offs and letting him go to work. Stephon Diggs is, mentioned, I think last night, that he packed on about 10 pounds of muscle, and you can see him wanting to show that off with that run after the catch, trying to stiff arm people, essentially being a running back for this team with what he does, catching the ball, on those quick hitters. But as for Dorsey, just in totality, I mean, I loved watching that video of him sort of packing up his stuff to head down to the locker room. A lot of people were joking, looked like an accountant just finishing his 9 to 5. Like he is that sort of a quiet psychopath that he's getting a reputation to be. And he has this offense humming. And I just love the versatility of this offense. It was a DB centric Titans team, a Titans team that likes to play that extra safety or play that nickel and throw a lot of guys in the secondary, give you light boxes. And Ken Dorsey was like, cool, I'm going to counter your light boxes by going heavy and bringing out Quentin Morris, bringing out Reggie Gilliam, utilizing Dawson Knox, Jake Kumerow, as opposed to maybe switching when there was an injury to a Khalil Shakir or a Jamison Crowder, riding that similar big type of receiver like Jake Kumerow, who's got some chops in the blocking game, doing all of those things, but then out of those looks, not even running, throwing out of those looks. That sort of creativity from Ken Dorsey was awesome to see. And really, I'm just digging what he has been doing so far, and he might not be long for Buffalo with the way he's been calling plays through the first 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. That accountant joke that was going on, that was hysterical. He's been getting memed a lot ever since he got hired, but he's a mastermind genius, almost an evil genius. There was that video of him like saying he's a psychopath or whatever.
Yeah, he's not a psychopath. He was trying to deny it.
yeah. Well, he certainly looks like one when he's packing his papers up and then leaving the press box after he just slaughtered a professional football team. But nevertheless, yeah, there's a lot that we could break down, but I don't want to milk the game entirely. I know you've probably had enough of it, and I mean, honestly, I've talked about it enough too. So let's move on to the third recent events banner, which is going to be the Bengals and the Colts, specifically being off the terrible starts, being both 0-2, 2 teams in the AFC that we probably went into the season thinking would be a threat to us. And now, lo and behold, we're 2 weeks in, and suddenly, I mean, they don't seem to be a threat to anybody.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at this is a tale, I think, of opposite off seasons, because you look at the Bengals and everyone was like, well, their only problem was the offensive line. And then they went out and added Alex Kappa and Ted Karras and Lyle Collins, and they drafted Cordero Bolson. And it's like, well, now the Bengals are going to be unstoppable. But that offensive line that they paid a ton of money for isn't producing early on. I mean, Micah Parsons was just playing with Lyle Collins last week. It was embarrassing to watch for Lyle Collins, who said he came to Cincinnati to be Joe Burrow's security guard, told him not to worry. Well, Joe Burrow had a lot to worry about, and Joe Burrow has a role to play in that with the way he's handling some of the pressure. I think Zach Taylor wasn't the greatest coach in the world and sort of had a lucky season. And I think he's starting to realize again that he's Zach Taylor, and the team is starting to realize that he's Zach Taylor. So for them, it's a whole bunch of offseason acquisitions that just aren't paying off. And on the other side, the Colts and a GM in Chris Ballard, who has been unable to finagle the quarterback, which is the most important position in football. He's tried and tried, and he's gone the veteran route instead of trying to tear it down and go after a younger player or trade a lot of draft capital and get a younger player. He's taken that veteran route year after year. And this offseason, you look at that Colts team, solid defense, great offensive line, Jonathan Taylor, Nakeem Hines, you have Matt Ryan. You look at that team and it was like, cool, this is a team that's going to compete maybe for the 1 seed because they have a weak conference. Tennessee is dinged and all those other teams in their conference, Jacksonville and Houston. But you looked at their wide receiver depth chart and you're like, what is Chris Ballard doing? He's sitting on all this money and he's going to count on Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, a second round pick, and Paris Campbell, a gadget player who's always hurt. He refused to spend any of that money that they have on the wide receiver position, bring in any veterans. And then sure enough, second week of the season, Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce are both out with injuries and Matt Ryan just had nobody to throw to. Like, it was completely embarrassing, the performance that they had against the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was Josh Allen versus the Jacksonville Jaguars bad, where that team just could not get anything going offensively. And they had nothing to blame but their GM, who refused to spend any money to bring in a veteran wide receiver presence. So a tale of two different, the starts are the same, but it's a tale of how they got there is two completely different stories.
Yeah, honestly, you're right. I didn't even think about that when I was writing down this recent events headline. Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. We had an offseason team that went after the weaknesses, and then we had a team in the offseason that kind of ignored them. They felt like they did enough to address them, and now here we are. The Cincinnati Bengals, I don't know. I remember throughout the entire offseason, I was bashing them. I've been bitter about the Bengals since they lost me money in the postseason. I thought they should have lost so many different times. But nevertheless, I went into the season and I'm telling myself they're not going to be good. They're not going to be good. And, watching how their offseason went, I'm looking at their roster up and down. I'm thinking to myself, how can this team really be that bad? I mean, I didn't think they were going to be terrible by any stretch, but how can I form this narrative that I'm trying to push you that they're not going to be a good team? And I was struggling to figure it out. And I guess what I just came down to was the defensive side of the ball for the Bengals. I think almost every player on that team played above expectations, and they came together as a unit at the right time and got hot to really support an offensive cast that, especially in the playoffs, wasn't exactly perfect. I mean, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, that skill position group, that's the bread and butter of that team. But that defense was really what got the job done when it came to push came to shove for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think the biggest difference going to this season is, of course, the offensive line struggles. Joe Burrow doesn't look the same with Jamar Chase, but I don't think this defense is going to be as good as it was at the end of last season. So as far as the Bengals go, that's what I think is going on there. And the Colts, I mean, you hit every single point. It's just the wide receivers aren't getting open. They got a ton of injuries. Shaquille Leonard hasn't played through the first 2 weeks. They're just battered down. General manager didn't do enough this offseason. And I mean, honestly, looking at it now, you kind of could see this coming for the Colts, right? I mean, you get even just Michael Pittman going down would have been enough. And I don't think Alec Pierce is going to be able to carry that receiving core. And now, lo and behold, here they are 0-2. They're 1-1, and behind the Jacksonville Jaguars after two of their easiest games.
The AFC South is so bad. They're so bad.
Yeah, it's terrible, and they've already played two of the easiest games that they're going to have on their entire schedule. So they're definitely behind the 8 ball. But my final recent events thing, usually I only have 3, but this one came down today, and it kind of relates to the Bills some way, some fashion. The Bucs signed Cole Beasley. I was kind of shocked, talking about the Colts now, that they weren't a team that maybe reached out to Cole Beasley. But the Bucs go and do it. They're struggling with wide receiver injuries, just as the Indianapolis Colts are. Julio Jones didn't play last week. What a shock. Mike Evans is suspended next week. I can't even remember if Russell Gage is healthy. Chris Godwin's obviously hurt. Do you think Cole Beasley makes any kind of impact with Tom Brady?
Yeah, I think he makes an impact. You mentioned it before. I was shocked that the Colts did not reach out to Cole Beasley this offseason. Pittman and Pierce on the outside with a guy like Cole Beasley in the slot and Paris Campbell as your gadget guy. It's a wide receiver, and that makes a ton of sense. But I'll tell you what, when Tampa Bay, I respect what they do, and obviously they got a ring, but at the same time, they are sort of letting Tom Brady sort of LeBron it a little bit, right? Where he gets to pick his teammates. Like, it's Tom Brady who sent Julio Jones a DM. It's Tom Brady, who reached out to Cole Beasley, et cetera. So while I think this one is going to work out, I think Tom Brady has had success with these slot receivers, guys like Julian Edelman, Wes Welker in the past. I think Cole Beasley fits that mold of a guy who just knows how to get open underneath and do the things that Tom Brady likes from his slot receivers. Despite the fact that I think it's going to work out, it's a weird vibe that they essentially let him be the de facto GM of that football team. But good for Cole. He's a good football player. I knew one of these competitors, the Packers, the Colts, the Buccaneers, someone had to sign him. A contending team had to sign him. I think that's what he was waiting for, the contender. So it'll be interesting to see him play. I put in a waiver claim for him on one of my fantasy leagues, so I'm hoping to get him because I think he could be at least early in the season eating, because I had Chris Godwin on my dynasty team. So I'm hoping to pick up Cole Beasley to be that guy on my bench until Chris Godwin comes back.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Cole Beasley does fit that mold of being one of Tom Brady's favorite wide receivers, a smaller in stature slot wide receiver, very trustworthy, great hands, couple yards after the catch here and there. He fits that description perfectly. Whether he'll actually come into that offense and make an impact, I guess, is something time will tell. But you'd like to think, yes. I don't know if two veterans really need that much time to get on the same page. Julio and Tom Brady, I mean, they were connecting relatively early. They were looking for each other early on in week one. So I'd like to think as soon as they get a couple practices under their belt, they're probably going to be connecting relatively often. He'll be Brady's Edelman. I think would it be disrespectful to say he'd be closer to Brady's Welker than he would be Brady's Edelman?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of maybe he'll be Manning's who was that Brandon Stokely. Maybe he'll be Brandon
Stokely. That's
what?
A very good one.
Insert Caucasian slot receiver here. Which one give me to think of?
Every time I hear Brandon Stokely's name, I hear Gus Johnson's call in my head every single time. All right, so that wraps up the recent events. We'll move right into the Q&A, which I have a couple questions for you. If you guys have any questions down in the comment section, be sure you're dropping them in there as well. But the first question that I have for you is in regards to one of our neighbors here in the AFC.
Yeah.
Miami Dolphins made some noise this weekend. They played against the Baltimore Ravens, got their asses kicked for 3 quarters, and then suddenly I think it's more on the Ravens about what happened, to be honest, but we can get that in a second. They're 2-0. What do you think of the Dolphins?
I think they're for real. They have a defensive coordinator sort of with that New England pedigree who stayed on there in I am blanking on his name. It's not Josh Boyer. Or maybe it's Josh Boyer. I'm blanking on the name of their defensive coordinator right now off the top of my head, but despite the fact that they gave up a ton of points to the Ravens, once that defense gets healthy, they're going to be solid. Like they added Melvin Ingram, they added Trey Flowers, they got Jalen Phillips, they got Christian Wilkins and Zach Sealer. Like they're really good along their defensive front. They got a lot of dogs in that secondary, and Javon Holland and Eric Rowe. And I mean, there's just a ton of talent there. And then you have Mike McDaniel, who, for all the jokes is really good at scheming things up on offense. And you have something that no other team in the National Football League has in those two guys, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Just elite world-class speed in the slot, on the outside, wherever you want it. And last week, Tua was able to sort of, channel that lightning in a bottle and get the ball where he needed to for those guys to pop off. Do I think that's a sustainable week-to-week model for the Miami Dolphins? I don't know. I think there will be some weeks where you can bring them down to earth. My comparison for Tua, because I don't want to get into like a crazy Tua debate, start yelling and screaming like the people on national TV, but like I look at Tua and I see Jared Goff. Right. Like that's what I see when I see Tua Tagovailoa. I see a quarterback who clearly is decent and can clearly pop off and have big games like he has, but clearly has a ceiling. He's not going to be the Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herberts of the world. And that can only get you so far, as the LA Rams found out. And for all of the 6-7 touchdown games that Jared Goff had in his career, he really came back down to earth once teams figured out what it was that they were doing and how they were being successful, and sort of figured out what Sean McVay was doing there. He needed that quarterback with intangibles like Matthew Stafford to be able to do what he wanted to do consistently. So it's early. It's week 3. It wouldn't shock me if the Dolphins beat the Bills this week. I predicted in my preseason predictions that the Dolphins would beat the Bills this week. I think that they early on, when we don't know what really it is they're all about and what it is they're doing, I think we'll be caught by surprise. But I think by the second time we see them in December and defenses start to figure out what they're doing and really starting to hone in on Tua, I think it'll be a different story. And I don't think they'll have what it takes to keep up with the Bills in terms of trying to win the AFC East. I think they're definitely in play for a wild card, but it's just interesting. They'll go as far as Tua can take them. And as good as performance was last week, he's got to do it consistently. And I just think eventually eventually they're going to figure it out. And once they figure it out, what it is they're doing schematically, Tua's innate abilities can only take them so far.
Yeah. I mean, you said it perfectly. Tua can only take them as far as Tua is going to take them. That's really what it's going to come down to for the Miami Dolphins. Whether or not he's able to make the throws in crunch time, if he has to lead a team to a game-winning drive, which, I mean, you can argue he somewhat did. I wouldn't call it a game-winning drive, but it was a game-winning quarter against the Ravens. But I just don't think some secondaries are going to be letting Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle get behind your safeties as many times as they did. We saw the Buccaneers do it. I think it was the first time the Buccaneers and the Chiefs played last year. Tyreek Hill had like 200 yards in the first quarter. And then after that, I think he had like 25, 30 yards maybe after that for the rest of the game. Like you mentioned, there will be changes to how defenses play against the Miami Dolphins. And I think this week was the alarm set off for everyone to buy Tua, letting Tua or letting
and you can't sleep on these teams either, because I mentioned my comp for him is Jared Goff, Jimmy Garoppolo. These types of quarterbacks can make the Super Bowl with the right talent around them, and the Dolphins have done that. Like, they have done a really good job of building up, despite what happened last week against the Ravens, what I think is a really good defense. They have fixed somewhat the offensive line, and like that speed is just world class. They got some good running backs. They got a good tight end room. Like, that team is loaded. So if Tua can sort of channel that for 20 games and harness that, he could easily do what guys like Jared Goff and Jimmy Garoppolo have done in the past. So the Bills got to be on notice. The Bills got to be on watch. And Von Miller, this is what we pay you for. Yep. Make Tua's life a living hell next week.
Yeah, definitely. To a guy like Tua, you mentioned these guys that have gone to Super Bowls with teams around them. They're the number one kryptonite is a guy that can get after them. If there's somebody that can get in their face, that can pressure them consistently, make them get out of the pocket, make them be uncomfortable. That's the kryptonite. We saw it with Jimmy Garoppolo. The 49ers got as far as Aaron Donald last year. And once that defensive front got a hold of him, he had to make he needed a game-winning drive at the end of the game, and he's just not able to do that. I mean, everybody knew in that point in time, even though there was like a minute and a half on the clock, the 49ers were toast. He's not driving them 75 yards. And that's, going to be what is going to be the Tua breaker as well. And I hope that, the Buffalo Bills are able to come out and, kind of simmer down the Dolphins. But like you mentioned, I wouldn't be shocked if we lost this game either. I had us losing one of the games to the Dolphins. I can't remember when. But nevertheless, if it's going to be a time, one of these powerhouses are going to be taken down. So, I guess it's going to be a really good game, and then the Ravens right after. So we have a little bit of a gauntlet coming up.
Oh yeah, on the road too.
I know. First, what?
2 of our first 5 are at home. 3 of our first 5 are on the road. Brutal.
Yeah, that is really brutal. I mean, at least for Miami and Baltimore, that's not terribly far. Going to LA, that I'd imagine that trip was probably tough.
Yeah, so I'm glad we had that extra rest that we did.
Yeah, definitely. First week too against the Super Bowl champs. That game didn't get enough credit, I feel like. But anyway, all right. So the third question that I had for you the second question I had for you. I didn't even know we spent that much time on question one. The second question I got for you. Who on the Bills specifically are you pleased to see having an early and often impact?
That's a good one. I think Gregory Rousseau definitely sticks out to me as somebody who, you take this freak athlete. I mean, what a pick with the 30th pick in the draft. So last year you already saw him becoming a upper echelon, above average, whatever you want to call it, like just a solid run defender, right? So with the 30th overall pick, you drafted a solid run defender who can get you 5-6 sacks a year. You drafted like what, kind of sort of that Shaq Lawson mold. I was fine with that with the 30th overall pick in the draft. But now you have that upside that Rousseau has that maybe a Shaq Lawson doesn't. You bring in a veteran like Von Miller, they start working together. And now you're starting to see the ceiling from Gregory Rousseau that could be just so much higher than what maybe it could have been if Von Miller never came here, and just working at the 3 tech, pushing the pocket, collapsing the pocket, getting that sack, the way he was a menace in the run game, helping to get back there and hit Derrick Henry in the backfield and hold him to 1.9 yards per carry. Gregory Rousseau is definitely the guy that has stuck out to me early on in the season as living up to his draft status and a player that I think could really elevate this defense.
Yeah, Gregory Rousseau is a great answer. I remember one play stuck out specifically. I'm sure you remember when Gregory Rousseau got off the edge and he ankle bit Derrick Henry and tackled him for a loss. That was a really, really nice tackle and a tough tackle to make on a guy like Derrick Henry. But he was one of the best run stoppers in the NFL last year before Von Miller got here. He was statistically one of the best in his first season, and that was something that being a run stopper on the defensive line isn't always the prettiest. People don't really necessarily see that. If you're not getting in the backfield, if you're not tackling the quarterback, you might not get as much recognition as you deserve. But Gregory Rousseau was one of the best run stoppers in the NFL and probably one of, if not the best on our team. So he definitely deserves credit for that. My answer to this question is probably going to be Jordan Phillips. I think Jordan Phillips was, an acquisition that, kind of got lumped into like the Shaq Lawson type addition, if you will. And, of course, they happened around the same time. But I don't think people recognized, including myself, how big of an impact he was going to have, at least at this point in time. And, he looked like DeForest Buckner in week 1 against the Los Angeles Rams. Week 2, I think he had a sack on Tannehill or a couple quarterback hits at least. He's been a force on the interior, and it's been pleasant to see. I would, of course, credit Von Miller for a majority of that because of just how much attention he draws. But Jordan Phillips deserves credit in every right himself. He's been tremendous for the Bills at this point.
Yeah, we got some dogs on that defensive line. I think Von Miller called them killers in this post-game interview there. So,
killers is an understatement. We have this is a defensive line that reminds me of what the Bucs defensive line looked like against the Chiefs in that Super Bowl in 2020. That is the type of defensive line I feel like we've been seeing through 2 weeks, and if that can keep up, I really have a hard time. How do we lose a game if this is something that we see on a weekly basis? But it has to happen. I don't think undefeated is necessarily ever going to happen again, honestly. All right, so the second question. So the third and final Q&A question I got for you is this. Which team has surprised you the most?
Ooh, which team has surprised me the most through 2 weeks? How about the New York Giants? I'm going to go with the New York Giants, and I know that they played the Tennessee Titans, who seem pretty down bad, and they played the Carolina Panthers, who are working in a new quarterback in Baker Mayfield and have Matt Rule as their head coach. But their roster is really bad. Like, they're not a good football team. Like, they're so down bad. And for them to be 2-0 and to be off on that type of start, kudos to Brian Dable, Joe Shane, sort of shades of the 2017 Buffalo Bills, who were able to ride a really weak conference into a wild card playoff spot. And they got there and scored 3 points. And the Giants, if they do get there, will probably do the same because, like I said, they're just not a good football team. But kudos to Brian Dable and Joe Shane in the first year of that rebuild, getting that team to play scrappy and getting some dubs that the previous head coach and the GM couldn't.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the first week they played against the Panthers, the lowly Panthers, no, that was the second week they played.
Yeah, the Titans were week 1.
Titans, right. I think, the Giants are a team that I think I had projected around 5 wins. I think that's still something, although starting off 2-0 would probably end up happening. They have, like you said, played 2 teams that are relatively down bad at the moment. The Tennessee Titans are, struggling with, I don't know what they're struggling with. They have no receivers. I mean, they're just not a good football team either. Taylor Lewan went down. Their offensive line's a shell of its former self. Derrick Henry's getting older. Without AJ Brown, I think he was the oil that made that machine really run well. That defense it's a very good defensive front. Their secondary is a little weak, but Titans don't really have much to offer. And the Panthers, I think the Panthers are borderline the worst team in the NFL, so I wouldn't say that says very much. But nevertheless, they're 2-0. They deserve some credit.
Mhm.
Brian Dable and Joe Shane, they're reviving the city of New Jersey right now, and the New York Giants are looking to continue to make some noise. And shades of the 2017 Bills is an interesting way to put it. I think I don't know if Daniel Jones necessarily provides that much of hope. I don't know. I don't know how I would feel
He's
about.
definitely not the answer there. So, Giants fans, like, just because you're 2-0, do not think Daniel Jones is the answer. He is a backup NFL quarterback.
I wonder how long they hold on to him. Let's say hypothetically they end up with a 7-10 to 8-9 record. Does Daniel Jones stick around, do you think?
No, I mean, maybe as like a one more year starting, but they should have their eyes on Will Levis, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young. I would love to see Will Levis out of Kentucky in a Giants uniform. I'm a really big fan of his game, and I think Brian Dable could get a lot out of a guy like Will Levis, who can, tuck the ball and run, similar to Josh Allen. He's got a big arm, neither to the degree of Josh Allen, obviously, but I think Will Levis is a really solid ball of clay coming out of college. It could be a top 10, 15 pick that I would just love to see him get a shot with Brian Dable.
Yeah, I mean, I think any athletic quarterback coming out of this draft is going to be what Brian Dable is going to
Mhm.
target. Daniel Jones himself is relatively athletic, and I think that's partially why he's even had success in the NFL at this point. It's definitely not been his arm for the most part. So Brian Dable, Joe Shane, they're doing a good job. They got to get some credit. The most surprising team to me through the first 2 weeks, I mean, this could be taken in a bad sense too. So I guess I would probably go with. This is a tough one. I didn't think about this on question myself. I'm going to go with the Raiders, just because I didn't think they were going to be. I didn't think they were going to really drop jaws this season.
Mhm.
I didn't think they were going to be top of the AFC West. I thought they could sneak in as a wild card team, but to lose the way they did to the Arizona Cardinals, who are an atrocious football team, that the Arizona Cardinals, talk about down bad. They are a team that are really struggling with all sorts of injuries. DeAndre Hopkins is out. That
Mhm.
defense just ain't it. I mean, there's just not much to like about the Cardinals, and the Raiders let them sneak back into that game. They go to overtime. They're driving down the field to kick what looks like the game-winning field goal, and Hunter Renfrow fumbles, and then it's a fumble 6 the other way, and they're starting off 0-2 in a division that if you start off 0-2 in, you're going to have a hard time climbing back. So
Mhm.
if the Raiders want any chance of making the playoffs, they're really going to have to go on a little bit of a winning streak throughout the mid portion of the season, because those games against the Chargers, even the Broncos, as bad as they have looked lately, and the Chiefs, of course, those are teams that they're not going to go down easy. I'd imagine the rest of their schedule is probably not particularly simple either. So I would say the Raiders, because I did not expect them to be 0-2 at this point in the year.
A bad offensive line is doing a lot of damage. They have all those skill position weapons and no offensive line for Derek Carr. He's running for his life, and they can't get any ground game going.
Yeah, but I know I feel bad for Derek Carr. The guy is standing back there trying to.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's just got no help, and that secondary is piss poor for the Raiders.
Yeah.
Too. That doesn't help. I mean, any team with one A, 1B receiver is going to come out and throw for a ton of yards against you. Even the Cardinals were able to do. I mean, Kyler Murray. I gained a lot of respect for Kyler Murray in that game. I don't know if you watched it.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I live out here in the
right?
desert.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
that
that's the
was
thing. Like,
ridiculous.
what they did was not very sustainable. But it shows how bad Cliff is,
Yeah.
and it shows how talented Kyler can be when he's dialed in.
Yeah, really. I mean, the whole Call of Duty bullshit. I mean, it is interesting. It is interesting that there seems to be some correlation, but Kyler Murray, I think he certainly could be a top 8 quarterback if he really was
Mhm.
focusing. I mean, if that truly what it comes down to is his lack of focus, his lack of game planning. But he is certainly special. I mean, I would put him in. He's just as athletic as Lamar Jackson. I would say just as good at scrambling. He's just as good at scrambling as Jalen Hurts. I really think if he had some help, his offensive line is a shell. If he focused himself, Cliff Kingsbury, like you said, is a complete moron. So that team, they were 9-0, 9 weeks to the season last year. Now here we are talking about them as one of the worst teams. What a drop off.
Yeah, it was a long off season for Cardinals fans. They were not happy on radio all off season.
There wasn't much to be happy about whatsoever. I mean, they sat there with their
Mhm.
thumbs up their ass. I mean, I don't even know. I can't even recall a move that they actually made to somewhat.
They drafted They drafted Trey McBride in the second round. They traded for Hollywood when they could have just drafted Jahan Dodson. Yeah, it was. They didn't do anything on defense. The one cornerback they signed, he died tragically in a car accident. So yeah, it was not a great offseason for the Cardinals.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I mean, I thought their defense honestly was the side of the ball that they could have used a lot more help on, but we saw them kind of
Oh, yeah.
spend a little bit ahead of the 2021 season, and that's what I think partially led them
Mhm.
to 9-0. JJ Watt got hurt, things of that nature, and that kind of led to their downfall. DeAndre Hopkins too. I think once he comes back, the Cardinals will show a little bit more life, but until then, it's going to be a long season for them. All right,
yeah.
so that wraps up the Q&A. We're going to move into the next segment, which is the underdog segment of the week. This is pretty much where we choose an underdog of the following slate that we have in week 3. And you're going to tell me, what you think of the team that you have taken. And you have the Jacksonville Jaguars, you said, over the area or the Los Angeles Chargers, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, you saw Justin Herbert get hurt last week with that rib injury. Jacksonville, I think, is a team that can get into the backfield and rough Justin Herbert up with guys like Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker, their first overall pick. So I think that Jacksonville will be scrappy on defense. I think that they will they'll get to Justin Herbert a little bit. That injury will hamper him, and they'll score just enough points on offense with all the weapons that they overpaid for, like the New England Patriots overpaid for their offense a season previous. They'll be able to put up enough points to get the upset victory.
Interesting. All right. There were a lot of people this offseason, that were kind of hyping up, Justice included. I know Hansel said it a couple times too. The Jacksonville Jaguars could potentially make the playoffs. And I'm like, you're crazy. I was kind of laughing in their face every single time somebody said this to me. And, here we are. They're at the top of the AFC South, and the Colts and the Titans, who I would have thought were the potential takers of that division, are completely underwater. And now I have no choice but to believe that the Jaguars are going to be the team that potentially comes out on top with it. I don't know. I think it's their defense that has really allowed them to get to the point they're at. Trevor Lawrence has taken some steps in the right direction. I think Christian Kirk has been surprisingly productive. I didn't think he was going to be nearly as productive as he's been through the first 2 weeks. James Robinson seemingly has no Achilles problems whatsoever. He's kind of just phased away from that injury as if it never happened. Travis Etienne hasn't done too much, but I think as the season progresses, he'll get to be a little bit more comfortable because he's coming off of I don't think it was an ACL tear. I don't remember what he's coming off of, but obviously
some kind of foot injury, broken foot or something like that. Liz Frank tear, I think. Liz Frank injury.
Okay, that's what Najee was dealing with. I think he dealt with that early in the offseason too. But nevertheless, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're 2-0. Their offensive line hasn't been terrible. Trevor Lawrence doesn't look bad. And that defense, Josh Allen with Trayvon Walker, who's looked pretty damn good in his first 2 weeks in the NFL too. They're putting together a surprisingly good season, at least by my standards. So not the craziest thing in the world. I don't know if they were playing anybody other than the Chargers. I think this would be a little bit more possible in my own perspective. But I mean, if the Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Chargers, I don't know what to think anymore. I feel like I don't know anything, even though I already feel like that through 2 weeks. All right, my underdog pick of the week is going to be the Lions over the Vikings. They are, I don't know if this game is in Minnesota. It's not prime time, I don't believe. So, Kirk Cousins will maybe look competent. He didn't look good last night whatsoever. I don't know if you caught any of that game.
I missed every single second of it. So, yeah, I heard it was bad.
It was ugly. There was a point later in the fourth quarter. He was genuinely just chucking the ball up. He was falling back, off balance, off his back foot, just throwing the ball up in Justin Jefferson's direction. I think Darius Slay should have broke the record for most interceptions in a singular game by one player. I mean, that's how many times he was just throwing it up into open space. It was bad. And that whole Kirk Cousins in primetime thing, it seems to become more real every single time he plays in primetime. But nevertheless, I do think the Detroit Lions are, a team that could have fit that question I asked you earlier, who surprised you throughout the first 2 weeks. Their offense is really what's surprising me the most, is their ability to put up points at the rate they're putting points up at. The first week against the Eagles, I thought Philadelphia was the team to, I was looking at Philadelphia like, you guys really allowed the Lions to score 35 on you. But then you come into week 2, the Lions, I can't remember the score of this game against the Commanders, but they put up a decent amount of points in that game as well. Thanks to the connection of Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre Swift is looking to be one of the most efficient running backs in the NFL. He's one of the few home run hitters out of the backfield that I think are really remaining at this point in time, and he's been balling out. That offensive line's looking stellar. It's a defense too that's really putting a mark on opposing quarterbacks. Aiden Hutchinson's been making an impact early. There's a lot to like about the Lions right now, and it's kind of hard not to root for them. I had them at 4 or 5 wins, and people were telling me you're crazy because they're gonna 7, 8 wins this year. I'm like, there's just no way. Jared Goff's the quarterback. Their defense isn't good enough. They're not going to be efficient enough on offense, and here we are. They're probably a top 5 scoring offense in the NFL right now, and that's pretty insane to say. And they did beat the Vikings last year for their first victory, so I could see this one going down this way. All right, so that is my underdog of the week. We got 2 segments remaining. We're going to get into the Name That Player segment. So this one's new as of last week. So pretty much I'm just going to give you 3 hints about a player, and I want you to guess who that player is.
All right.
Kind of a little bit of a teaser into the quiz game before we kick that off. So let's get right into Name That Player. So the first hint that I'm going to give you for Name That Player is this. This player has reclaimed a starting role this season. The second hint is going to be this player has 411 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 2 interceptions in 2022 so far. And the third hint is going to be this. This player has been in the NFL since 2015.
Is this player famous Jameis Winston?
It is not famous Jameis Winston. Do you want a second guess?
Man, I've done not watch enough around the league. Reclaimed his job as a starter. Pedestrian stat line. Carson Wentz has thrown more than 2. Nah, I don't got it off the top of my head. No.
You want another hint?
Yeah, give me one more hint.
All right. The other hint is this. This player started his career in the AFC and is now in the NFC.
Ooh, Baker?
Not Baker. That's a good answer. That's the question. That's the answer that I thought you'd guess initially.
Yeah.
Any other? You want to take another crack at it?
Oh, gosh. Like I said, I'm going to embarrass myself on this quiz show in a second. I'm trying to think of teams. I'm just like going through my head now, like around. It's not in the NFC East. It would not be in the NFC North. NFC South, it would not. Would it? NFC South is Carolina, New Orleans, Tampa. Marcus Mariota?
Yes, it is Marcus Mariota. You are
Took me long enough.
Marcus Mariota is the answer. He's not terrible. I mean, he's not horrible with the Falcons so far.
Desmond Ritter should be playing.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that's a thrown to
Kyle
the
Pitts. Kyle Pitts is like 1 catch. We need to get Desmond Ritter in there.
Don't even mention that. I drafted so much Kyle Pitts. It's not even funny. And
we got to get someone in there who will throw the ball to Kyle Pitts. That's what we got.
I don't understand what it's going to take. All offseason, I was fed this spoonful of a narrative that Kyle Pitts is this generational tight end. He's going to have one of the best seasons of all time. Holy shit. And I believe it. I mean, I still do believe it. It's just for one reason or another, he doesn't get targeted. I mean, it's not even like they're throwing it to him and they just can't connect. He's not even getting looked at. It's almost an anomaly of some sort. It's bizarre. Oh my God. But I don't want to talk about that right now. That'll get me upset. All right. So that will wrap up the Name That Player segment. We're going to get into the most anticipated segment on the show, and this is going to be the Caveman's Quiz Game. You really don't have any faith in yourself here?
I feel like I'm probably gonna be the worst person who's ever done this on your show. It's just like I know like the most random, useless stuff, but when you put me on the spot, I cannot for the life of me remember anything. Like when we do shows and stuff, I still have my like notes from our show tonight. Like I have to write everything down. I can't remember a dang thing.
No, I mean I'm the same way. If I was the one going through the quiz, I'd suck at it too. I probably have garnered a lot of random knowledge just because of having to create all the questions. But I I freeze up in these types of moments. And there have been plenty of people that have gotten 0 points. So
All right, if I get a point, I'm good. All right, cool.
Yeah, definitely. It's not possible to be the worst because you'll at least be tied for the worst. So
yeah, there we go. Sweet.
there's one way to look at it. All right. So if you are unfamiliar with how the quiz game works, and if you're somebody watching, you're unfamiliar with how it works, the quiz game goes as follows. There are 5 NFL quiz questions, an off-season events question, which is now being kind of transformed. I have to update this into like a transactions of 2022, if you will. Events question, a stats question, history, draft, and awards question. Each question is worth 10 for an easy question, 20 for medium, 30 for hard. A true false follow-up question. If you get the answer right, you get 1 mulligan per game. If you get an answer wrong, you can use the mulligan right away. Or if you want to save the mulligan for the end and then pick a different category, you can. But also a side note, I don't have like say hypothetically you pick a history medium question and you get it wrong. I don't have another history medium question.
All right.
And then there's a final wager question, which pretty much acts as final Jeopardy. You put it down a certain amount of points. If you win the question, you get those points doubled. If you don't, you lose the points. So let's kick it right off, Judge. I think I got more faith in you than you got faith in me. All right, so we'll start with the very first question being the off-season events question. You want to go easy, the medium, or the hard?
Let's go medium.
All right, he's going to take the medium question right off the bat. The Eagles traded away 2 wide receivers this offseason. Who were they?
Jalen Reagor, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside.
You are correct. Jalen Reagor and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is correct. That's 20 points. What was the latest one? They traded Jalen Reagor more recently, right?
Yeah.
He went to the Vikings, and then J.J. Arcega-Whiteside got traded to the Seahawks.
Yeah.
I think he's probably on the practice
He got
squad.
cut. Yeah, he's on the practice squad.
Yeah, not shocking at all. All right, so the true false follow-up question is this. They traded A.J. Brown for a second. True or false?
False. It was a first-round pick, correct?
Yes, you are correct. It was a first-round pick.
They
3 points on the board. I mean,
they used it to draft Treylon Burks.
Correct. They did indeed use it to draft Treylon Burks. It's not the worst start in the world. I mean, you were saying you were going to come out and just lay a complete egg. I thought you were going to come out and potentially take the easy question, but you're off to a pretty solid start, I got to say. All right, so that's question number 1. Question number 2 is the stats question. Do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard?
The stats, I'm going to go for easy.
All right, he's going to take the easy stats question. Who led the NFL in passing yards last year?
Oh, my God, I don't even know. Justin Herbert.
It was Tom Brady. Tom Brady led passing touchdowns, attempts, completions. Tom Brady led pretty much freaking everything. No worries. No worries. You got 30 points on the board. There is no reason to stress just yet, at least. Do you want to use the mulligan here, or do you want to save it?
I will save it.
All right, he's going to save the mulligan. We're going to move on to question number 3. The history question. Do you want to take the easy, the medium, or the hard?
I'll go medium again.
All right, he's going to take the medium question. What season was it in which the NFL recently attempted to review pass interference penalties?
Let's see. Was it right before COVID? I'm going to say 2019.
You are correct. The 2019-2020 season is when they attempted the review. So that will be 20 points on the board. So now you are up to, I've been having an extremely hard time with math on this show. Like now I'm being extremely articulate with what I write down and how I'm going to add it up. So you are up to 50 points, 20 plus 10 from the first one, 0 on the second, 20 on the third. So here is the true false question, which anyway, true false. They removed it after that season.
After that season. That would be true.
You are correct. They did remove it after that season. So that is another 10 points on the board. You are up to 60 points. I mean, you could be doing a lot worse. Just a reminder, which I forgot to add it to the StreamYard. I think it was Dave had 150 points, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on, let me go check it out. Do you think you have any chance of catching Dave? Any at all?
He made it clear that he would not be happy if I passed him. So I might make it. I might make it so I get 140.
Oh. All right, fair enough. All right, so we're gonna move on to the draft question. Do you want to go with the easy, the medium, the medium, or the hard?
I'm gonna stick with the medium.
All right, the medium draft question is this. Name 3 players from the first round of the 2022 NFL draft that have not played a regular season game.
Kenny Pickett.
Right.
The Jamison Williams.
Yep.
Oh, the left tackle for the Saints. Why am I blanking on his name? The left tackle for the Saints. Trevor Penning.
You are correct. Trevor Penning is the right answer. Trevor Penning, I think he got put on injured reserve, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember why, but
foot injury, like real late in training camp.
Okay, foot injury late in training camp. That guy was a talk of the offseason. He was
getting fights everywhere.
Yeah, he was throwing his own teammates to the ground. He's a rookie coming in and bullying everybody. I don't know how I would have taken that if I was a Saints fan. Like, it's nice to see your rookie making noise, if you will. Yeah. But at the same time, like,
not that kind of noise.
Yeah, he's kind of being an ass. But either way, that's another right answer. That's another medium correct. So that's another 20 points. That's the fourth. Yes, I just got to make sure the fourth question, 20 points. The follow-up true-false question is this. The New York Jets draft pick, Jermaine Johnson, I think this was their second or third pick in the first round, has yet to play a game either.
It's false. I think I saw he had a sack in his first game.
The last I checked, it didn't.
I might have been watching some preseason.
Let me double check. Let me double check because I'm pretty positive it said no, but I'm pretty positive.
He had half a sack against the Ravens. He's got 4 tackles, 3 assisted, and half a sack on the season.
You might have got me. Why does it say? Oh, yep, there it is. Okay, you are correct. True is the right answer. There you go. Ooh. That's another 10 points. You are up to 30, 60, 90.
NFL red
points.
Zone.
I thought, because I was looking on Pro Football Reference when I was looking at it, and for one reason or another, I thought that it said that he had
not
played. He had no stats, no games recorded.
Interesting.
But yeah, all right. So you're up to 90 points. That is pretty damn good. So for the final question, being the awards question, do you want to use your mulligan yet? At any point throughout the show, you can use your mulligan on a different question. Do you want to save it for the end?
I don't. I'm gonna keep saving it. I'm gonna save it for. Can I use it after I wager all my money and get it wrong?
You can't use it after the wager. That's an interesting question, though. But no, after the wager.
I'll save it for now. I'll go through this awards thing here, see what we do. Right. I don't pay any attention to off-season awards, so this is probably not going to end well for me.
Hey, it's worth a shot, and you got the mulligan. So for the awards question, you want to do the easy, the medium, or the hard?
I'm going to go with the medium. It seems to be my sweet spot there.
All right, he's going to go with the medium question, which is going to be this. Who has been selected to the most Pro Bowls in NFL history?
I mean, I want to go with one of the quarterbacks, Brady, Manning, or Breeze, but I feel like it's probably going to end up being a kicker. But I'm going to go with, might as well go with the guy who had the most passing yards in the NFL. Actually, I'm going to go with Tom Brady.
You are correct. Tom Brady does have the most Pro Bowls in NFL history. If it's the way I like to tell my guests,
I think you're going to tell me like Morton Anderson or something. I'll be like,
I mean, like in a medium question, if this was under the hard, then you could really have to think about it. But one of the tricks could be, if it's a question that you feel like you're overthinking, if it's an easy or medium, one of the answers that came right to your head, it's probably that answer. But you are right. Tom Brady is the correct answer. So that's another 20 points on the board. The true false follow-up is going to be this. Tom Brady is tied with Jerry Rice for the amount of Pro Bowls that they have.
I'll go with true.
It's not true. Tom Brady has 15. I think Jerry Rice had 14. Well, you've already stat checked me once, but I'm pretty positive on this one that Tom Brady is standing alone at 15 Pro Bowls by himself. So that will bring you to 30. Okay, let me do this math real quick. 30 points. That's 60. What you teach social studies, right?
Yeah.
Social studies. Okay, so you're not a math. But I'm sure you can do better addition than I can. 30, 60, 90. 110 points you're at right now. Pretty damn good for someone that says they suck at trivia. Do you want to use your or you want to use your mulligan, you can use it on any of the previous question categories.
Let's go back to the one I got wrong. Stats.
Stats. All right, we can go back to the stats question. All right. This is the stats question. Do you want the easy or the medium? Or the easy or the hard?
Go big or go home. Let's go with the hard one.
All right, he's going for the hard question. This is a tough one. This team put up 50 points twice last season. Who is it? No time limit. Take your time. Put some thought to it.
I'm gonna go with the Green Bay Packers.
It was not the Green Bay Packers. You might be surprised by this answer.
I figured it would be some team that I was like, easy one would have been like Chiefs or something like that. So I knew it was gonna be someone silly.
This might disgust you. Just take another random guess. Just
might
I just gave you.
Disgust me. Patriots, maybe.
No, it was the Patriots. The Patriots did it twice. Once against the Jaguars, and they did it against the Jets too. I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Patriots. That when I saw that, I was disgusted. I was like, are you kidding me? They were. Thanks to those two games, they finished, I think, top 6 in points for in the NFL last year for an offense led by Mac Jones with Nelson Aguilar, Hunter Henry, and freaking Kendrick Bourne. This team's leading the league in points for. That was ridiculous. But all right, so you are up to no points on the mulligan, but that is quite all right. You got 30, 60, 90, 110 points. How much do you want to wager?
Let us wager 100 of the wait. What is the number one person who's ever played this game has? Can I catch them?
Yeah. So I forgot to upload the damn thing. So the leaderboard goes as follows. Number 1 on the leaderboard is my guest from last week. He does the Pick a Side podcast. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No, no.
TikTok podcast. But he came on and he had 170 points. So you could catch him if you really wanted to.
So
you want to put it all on the line.
I will wager 70 points.
All right, he's going to wager 70 points. This is something right here. I've never had anybody wager this many points.
Really?
Yeah, I know. The most I've had.
Go home.
The most I think I've had somebody wager is probably like 50 or something like that. But all right.
You know what? Screw it. Let's wager 100 points.
Okay.
Let's do it.
This is a gamble for 100 points. Let me put it in the. All right, so here it is, the wager question. For 100 points, who was the last wide receiver to win Offensive Rookie of the Year?
Jamar Chase?
It was Jamar Chase. You're right. You gambled and you were successful. I was trying to. The idea of that question is to make you forget this last offseason. Try and look back. Nor did I expect my guest, being you, to come on and put 100 points down, because some people put a minuscule amount of points down. The question is kind of hard, and I'm like, well, that was ridiculous. But there you go, and 100 points for the what I tried to be a trick question on the wager. So now that is, oh boy, that's 210, right?
Yes, sir.
Thanks, teacher. 210 points on the night. Wow, that's going to be tough. That's going to be a tough nut to crack. I mean, I keep saying it every freaking show that it's going to be tough for the leader to be topped, and you just did it again.
I'm pleasant. I can't wait till we're done. I'm gonna text Dave and let him know.
Dave's going to be mad with the wager question. He's going to be kind of upset that it was that easy. But so the way I do this is I send it out to like a group of my friends, and I try and tell them what they answer the question depending on if they think it's easy, medium, or hard. And that was one of the questions, and only like a third of them got it. People were saying Odell. That was a popular answer because he's the one before that to take it home, I believe. So yeah, 210 points. You shocked the world. You shocked the world tonight. But yeah, good job. Thank you, Judge, for hopping on tonight. It was a really good conversation. I know you just had a show and you were willing to take
appreciate
the time
it, man.
to hop on. So thank you, man. I really appreciate that.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So if as always, guys, if you enjoyed the show, be sure you're liking, subscribing, checking it all out. There's going to be a show next Tuesday as well as always. And of course, you can go find Judge. All of the links will be down in the description to Cover1's channel. You can go over to the Air Raid Hour and check out any of their shows. I'll have Judge's socials down in the description as well. So make sure you're checking them out everywhere you can down in the description. But like I said, thank you for hopping on. Thank you to anybody for hopping on the show tonight. Joey says, I told you could pull it off. Good job.
Thank you,
Good
Joe. I
job.
appreciate it.
All right. Well, yeah. Thank you very much, guys. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Go Bills.
Go Bills.